right, everybody, come on. Everybody stand up and give them a wonderful round of applause. Thank you so much. That's our Matthews Concert Band. And keep your eye out for their next performance. It's not going to be till November, but it's going to be in the community center Thursday, November 10th at 7 o'clock. So keep an eye out for that. Wonderful group. If you'd like to retire into the crowd, or do you want to just sit? Okay, very well. So anyway, good afternoon, and there's a lot more people than you would imagine from the inside because everybody's huddled in the shade. So welcome to everybody. My name is Mark Tufano, and I am the commander of the American Legion Hooks-Orr, American Legion Post 235 here in Matthews. And thank you very much for coming to this wonderful, wonderful event. Memorial Day is a little bit different than Veterans Day. Veterans Day is more of a upbeat where we're commemorating veterans that have served, are serving, and will serve, and to applaud them for their service. But on Memorial Day, it's a more somber event, and it's when we remember those that have fallen or those that have been critically wounded. So we want to keep that in mind during this entire ceremony. A little bit about the American Legion for all of you that may not be aware. It is probably the oldest veterans group in the country. It was formed over 100 years ago. And we do all kinds of incredible things that perhaps you may or may not be aware of. One of those is that we sponsor one of the most fantastic baseball teams, and both junior and senior baseball teams. Come on, stand up out there. Now, last year, thank you. When I look at these young men, I really get encouraged about the next generation. So I know, especially as we get a little older in years, we look down and say, my God, are these the people that are going to be running our country soon? But when you look at these young men, this is reinstills your faith. They're wonderful young men. By the way, last year, we only had a single team. We had a junior league team, and they went all the way to the state championship. Unfortunately, we came in second place, but we're going to fix that this year, aren't we, Coach? Yeah. Also, we have a senior team this year as well. Now, just to make sure I'm correct, your first game is tomorrow night at Butler, okay, at 7 o'clock. That's the junior league team, and then the senior league team will be Friday night at 7 o'clock, also at Butler. And please, please, please go out and support these young men because they're incredible players. They come from all over the Mecklenburg County area, and they would appreciate your presence. Also, we do something called Boy State and Girl State. For those of you that may not be aware of what that is we send young men and women to work with state legislatures, personnel, to actually be part of the governing process. So I personally was a Boy State nominated by the American Legion when I was a teenager, and I went to Boy State in Florida. And I know we have a couple of people on stage here that are Legion members that also went to Boy State. But you sit side by side with state senators, state representatives, the governor, and you hold a camp for almost a week. And you learn the ins and outs of what it is to govern. It's one of the most incredible civic opportunities that young men and women can have. And I want to proudly announce that last year we sent one young man to Boy State, and this year we're sending 2 young men to Boy State and 1 young woman to Girl State. So we're looking forward to that. The American Legion is built on 4 pillars. The first one is Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation. The second is National Security. The third is Americanism, and the fourth is children and youth. And you've seen through the Boy State, Girl State, and through our baseball teams that we've got a very active youth program. In our Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation, we have an auxiliary, an American Legion auxiliary, that makes an incredible effort to go to hospitals and in-home visits with veterans who are in need of companionship. And you can go to the tent, the American Legion auxiliary tent, if you would like to join. You don't have to be a descendant or a member of a veteran or even a veteran yourself. You can actually join the auxiliary. And also we have the Sons of the Legion, which is the tent right next to them. And that is if you are a male and you are a descendant from a military veteran, and it doesn't, regardless of their gender, and you can become a Son of the Legion, and they're an incredible organization as well that works with the young people who are descendants of military. So thank you. And that was actually, I didn't realize I was going to get a symbol at the end of that announcement, but thank you very much. So in addition, we this morning had a very touching ceremony at the old cemetery next to the Presbyterian Church. And as you can tell by our name of our post, we are the Hooks-Orr American Legion post. And we have named this after two young men that passed away during World War I, and they're buried in the old cemetery behind the Presbyterian Church. And one is Private Hooks, and another is Private Orr. And many of you may not realize this, but one of our new commissioners, Gina Hoover, right here, she is the great-great-grandniece of Private Orr, and we're just so blessed to have her here on stage with us today. One of the tragedies about Private Orr is that, as you know, the armistice for World War I was on the 11th month, 11th day, and 11th hour, and this young man passed away in battle 30 minutes before armistice was announced. But it brings to mind why we're here today. And we're here today to remember all of the men and women whose lives have been lost all throughout all wars. And as I said this morning, and I hope I don't become as emotional as I did this morning, that I cannot imagine young men and women barely out of their teens who are dying in the battlefield, and even today, who are dying in the battlefield in the most horrid conditions, and yet don't have the ability to say, I love you one last time, or to have somebody reach out and put their arms around them. That's what makes veterans so incredible. They may not want to be there. They may not even know why they're there, but they're there. And we wouldn't be sitting here today enjoying this day if that was not the case. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on is just the sentiment that I just talked to you about. We also send young men and women to what's called oratorical. And this is where they talk about the things that I just talked about. And they also talk about the Constitution of the United States and how important it is. And we had our candidate go all the way to the state championship as well this year, and unfortunately didn't win as well. But these are the types of things we're trying to instill in young people. We're trying to instill this sense of honor, the sense of gratitude, the sense of respect. Now, for the last 2 years, I've had the incredible pleasure of being the commander of this phenomenal post. It takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of time in order to do the things that we do. I couldn't have done it, obviously, without the incredible support of these officers of the post that are on the dais today. But it's the last, this is my last American Legion Memorial Day ceremony. Turning over the reins during this ceremony a little later on. But I want to go over and tell you just basically what we've accomplished as a team over the last 2 years. First of all, what you see behind you, what is now, thanks to Mayor Higdon and the commissioners, has been named officially the Matthews Veterans Memorial Park. What you see behind you was built totally without any government money at all. It was donations, cash donations from the citizens of this town, plus Lowe's, Home Depot, Site One, Carolina Brick, and every one of us was out here literally building this by hand. And it was inaugurated a couple of years back, and the town has become quite spirited about it and will be using what's called tourism funds. And those are funds, they're not coming out of your taxpayer money. This is revenue from things like hotel, when they do a hotel or rent a car or whatever the case may be. And they're going to be investing substantial sums of money in the Matthews Veterans Memorial Park to make it even more precious and more special than what it is. It's going to be a gem in the town. Now, one of the wonderful things that we want to announce today is that after the ceremony, in the back corner where the American flag is, there is going to be a unveiling without the veil, if you will, of the new mural. And this, I need to talk to you a moment about this. This was just installed last Wednesday. And let me tell you the story of how it came about. There were a number of artists that we approached, our post approached over the last year. And as soon as we started saying that it had to be a patriotic theme, and it had to represent all the branches of service, had to be ethnically and gender diverse, et cetera, it was the patriotic theme, I think, that didn't settle with many of them, and I didn't see them again. But what happened was, a friend of mine came up to me and said, "Hey, I know this artist, and I think you might be interested in reaching out to her." Her name is Kim Shepard. And the reason why that mural and this day is very special is when I first met Kim, we sat on the bench just looking at that bare wall, thinking about what it could be. This young lady escaped from Vietnam on a barge at the age of 14, was out in the middle of the ocean for days upon days with no food or water. Her father was a general in the armed services with the Vietnamese army. He was captured and put in a concentration camp in Hanoi for years. As God would have it, after a period of time, the family was reunited here in the United States. She found a home here. She married, had 3 beautiful boys. And it was an emotional experience sitting there, because she said she wanted to do something to pay America back for what it has given her. Now, she's a very private and quiet person. I had asked her to be up here on stage and maybe say a few words, but she declined. I asked her if she would stand up and let everybody know she was here, and she declined. But she will be at the mural in the back after the ceremony, and the mayor will be there as well, and we'll say a few words. It is one of the most incredible pieces, and it does indeed show all the wars since World War I, all the branches of service is ethnically and gender diverse, And if you'll notice in the artistry, the reason why she was selected is because of what's called almost photorealism in the photography, in the way she paints. It's almost, in some of her work, it's almost, you can't even tell it's a painting. But hopefully after the ceremony, you'll be able to go back and meet Ms. Shepard personally and realize firsthand what an incredible, incredible individual she is. So having said all of those things, I would like to say goodbye and introduce you to the next commander of this post, Mr. Wilfong. Okay, I will right after I introduce you. Stephen is an incredible individual. There's a lot of the things that I was going to say about him, but he asked me not to. He's a very humble man, but also a very strong one as well. He was a Veteran of the Year 2 years ago, and he's also served 2 terms in Vietnam. And also, he has been a member of the American Legion for 52 years. And so this is absolutely incredible. Now, before I have Stephen take over the ceremony and actually start the proceedings, I just wanted to recognize everybody that we had on stage. Of course, in the front are the most important people today, and that's our veterans and members of our post. But we also have some very important people here as far as the town is concerned. We have with us today Mayor Higdon and Mayor Pro Tem Ken McCool, Commissioner Larry Whitley, and Commissioner Gina Hoover. And over on this side, Tim is the Master. I always get that confused. Is the master of the Masonic Lodge. Now, this is very important that he's sitting here because we don't have a home of our own. The Masonic Lodge, for the last number of years, right next door, that building right there, has allowed us to use their facilities almost at will. As a matter of fact, the chairs that we're sitting on up here and the tables over in the underneath the tents all came from the Masonic Lodge, and they've just been an absolutely incredible partner for us. Barry is he is the president of the Rotary, and this is really important. That wall in the back underneath the flags, that was placed there by the Rotary in 1992, was it, Barry? And if it wasn't for the Rotary, and also they put in the flag as well, the flagpole, and the surrounding bricks underneath it, and if it wasn't for them, we would have never have had anything for the 142-year history of Matthews. And it was upon their work that we added to it and enhanced to make the Matthews Veterans Memorial Park. Now, she's not here with us today, but her name is Adrienne Garson, and she's the publisher of the Matthews Mint-Hill Weekly. And if you've seen these incredible ads once a month in that newspaper that talks about the veterans fairs that are coming up during that month, she's been doing that free of charge for us for years now. So with that, if you would be so kind, very important, our police chief, Clark Pennington. Hi, Clark. And we don't have a representative from the fire department today?
Out of town.
Okay, so thank you for that. But they have been absolutely incredible partners with us as well. And I don't know about you, but I think our police department and our fire department are absolutely outstanding. And they get better and better every year. I don't know how that's possible, but they do. So having said that, if we can just have one round of applause for all of our distinguished guests. Commander?
Good morning. I am that individual he spoke about. And we will now open the ceremony. Al?
As I said a little earlier, the invocation will be the 23rd Psalm. So if you want to follow along, that'd be great. I will now recite the 23rd Psalm, which has well been called the soldier's psalm and was in fact written by that great soldier of the Old Testament, King David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Streaming, and the road is in
I'd like to thank the Navy JROTC program at Providence High School, the wonderful presentation of colors that these young people did this morning. And I would like to acknowledge Commander Davin O'Hora, who is the commanding officer at Providence High School, for his relationship with the American Legion. So in the same vein of the importance of never forgetting the POW MIA on this wonderful day, and one of the major reasons why we're here, I'd like to have George Washington please come forward.
You may be seated. The tradition of setting a separate table in honor of our prisoners of war and missing comrades has been in place since the end of the Vietnam War. The manner in which this table is decorated is full of special symbols to help us remember our brothers and sisters in arms. The table is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner, alone against his or her suppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single rose in the vase signifies the blood they may have shed in sacrifice to ensure the freedom of our beloved United States of America. This rose also reminds us of the family and friends of our missing comrades who keep faith while awaiting their return. The red ribbon on the vase represents an unyielding determination for a proper accounting of our comrades who are not among us. A slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless fallen tears of families as they wait. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us at this time. The chair is empty. They are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope, which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors to the open arms of grateful nation. The American flag reminds us that many of them may never return and have paid the supreme sacrifice to ensure our freedom.
Thank you very much. We've discussed the significance of the poppy flower by Colonel Dragnet, who is also a member of the American Legion.
Those of you who may or may not know the history from the poppies, and we've been passing those out as you came in, hopefully you got one. I just wanted to give you a little bit of history about the about the poppy before we get into the poem itself. In World War I, in May of 1915, Major John McCreary was a Canadian Army doctor, and he was treating victims of the German gas attacks. He wrote a poem following the death of his friend, Lieutenant Alexis Himmler. He discarded the paper because he didn't think anybody would really appreciate it. But a fellow officer picked it up and found it and sent copies to various news outlets in London. And in 1918, a young woman, American woman, became the first person to pin a silk poppy on her clothing. And then this was copied throughout the British Empire after that. So I just thought that that was a little bit of an interesting history. But the poem itself reads, in Flanders fields, the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing, fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Thank you, Colonel. At this time, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce our mayor. Most of you know him well. He is a great defender of veterans, has been significant in the success of our Veterans Memorial Park, and has always been on hand anytime that we've asked him to assist in anything that involved veterans. I'd ask Mayor Higdon to please come forward.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out today. I was remarking earlier to Mayor Pro Tem McCool that I recall these events when there would be maybe 20 people in the audience, and it was almost embarrassing. So thank you for making this a part of your Memorial Day weekend. I'd like to thank the Hooks-Orr American Legion Post 235 for again asking me to come speak at this event. Today is a day where we remember and honor those who gave the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our country and the protection of those ideals and values we hold dear. I'd also like to thank the Matthews Concert Band again. Let's give them another round of applause. Many years ago, I used to play a saxophone, not Bill Clinton, but I can appreciate when I saw these men and women up here sweating as they played, so thank you so much for playing that beautiful and patriotic music. Thank you also for the reason we're here. Thank you to all veterans. Please stand if you're available, if you're able and you're a veteran, so we can recognize you. You know, Matthews is home to quite a few veterans. My favorite veteran is here today. My father, John Higdon, is sitting over here in the corner. He's here today with my mother, Mary. Dad served in the Army from 1951 to 54, was in the Army Reserves for many decades after that, and he retired as a Chief Warrant Officer, 5th class. Dad is 88 years old, but still takes guff from no one, a trait that he learned in the Army. So I love you, Dad. Thanks for coming today. When I reflect on what it means to serve in the military, I think surely it's one of life's highest callings. What professions, after all, do Americans value most? Well, it certainly isn't politicians. I think we rank right up there with telemarketers and used car salesmen. But, hey, I guess, you know, it is what it is. But certainly teachers or those in the clergy, firefighters, emergency responders, these are all professions that rank very highly when Americans are polled to say who they admire the most. But many polls say that those who serve in the military are the most highly admired people in the United States. Why do people choose to join the military? I asked some of the gentlemen and ladies up here, and a few of them told me they joined because they needed a job. But for most, it is a profound sense of patriotic duty and a desire to serve our country. The Bible tells us Jesus said, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." And in this context, Jesus was preparing his disciples for his impending arrest and crucifixion. The friends he refers to were his disciples and, by extension, his followers. But those who served in the military have in the same way agreed that if called into battle, they would also be willing to give their all, up to and including their very lives, for their friends, for all of us, for us Americans, people of all ethnicities, from all parts of the country, of all faiths, of all political stripes. And even as today's public discourse becomes more crass and our country more divided, those that serve in the military honor all of us by saying, "I will die to protect you, your family, and your right to believe and profess whatever you want." Thank goodness we have those willing to take on that role, because we would not exist as a republic today if they did not. Traditional Memorial Day remembrances recall the stories of epic battles and acts of heroism that sadly result in the deaths on some foreign battlefield. But today I want to share with you the stories of two men known personally by my family, men who were injured during wartime but survived the war, only to succumb to those injuries decades later. War, it seems, is a cruel mistress, claiming victims long after battles have ceased. My brother-in-law, Greg Shoemaker, was good friends with a man named Roger Thomas, and Roger's story is very noteworthy. He was born in Jamestown, Ohio, and settled in nearby Xenia, a small town east of Dayton. And some of you may have recalled hearing about Xenia because the second largest tornado ever recorded on Earth hit that town in 1974 and devastated the town. Roger survived that event. He graduated from Xenia High School, attended Wittenberg University, and married his wife Sandy in 1973. And Roger and Sandy settled down and had 4 children. Roger joined the Army and was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division, the 101st Screaming Eagles. Anybody here serve with those folks? I think there'd be at least a few. The Screaming Eagles have been referred to as the most potent and tactically mobile of the U.S. Army divisions by General Edward Meyer, the former Chief of Staff of the Army. Roger served with distinction in the Persian Gulf, participating in both the operations leading to the buildup of troops and defense of Saudi Arabia, known as Desert Shield, and then the actual combat phase, as you recall, Desert Storm. Iraqi forces purposely damaged and set aflame hundreds of oil wells in Kuwait, creating an environmental hazard for troops who were nearby. Roger had the misfortune of being in the midst of several of these burning oil wells for a protected period of time, and the smoke from these wells contained acidic gases, volatile organic hydrocarbons, dust, sand, and dirt. And as a result of this exposure, Roger's lungs were irreparably damaged. He struggled to breathe for the rest of his life. In his final years, his lung capacity was reduced to only 22% of normal, requiring him to undergo a double lung transplant. I had the pleasure of meeting Roger at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base about 1 year before he passed away. And although in struggling health, he remained in exceptional spirits. A favorite line of his was that he couldn't give anyone 5, only 4. You see, he had lost a finger on each hand while firing howitzers during the war. Roger died October 31st, 2019, nearly 29 years after the conclusion of Operation Desert Storm. Thank you, Roger Thomas, for your admirable service. Perhaps it is a practice sadly confined to a bygone era, but when I was a kid, my family sat down for our evening meal at a table together. We would talk about school and upcoming events, what was on the local news, or my sister would sometimes rib me about a non-existent crush I had on a neighborhood girl. Actually, I did like her a little bit. And occasionally my father would sprinkle in stories from his workplace. One name I remember him mentioning often was Tom Workman. My dad mentioned Tom was always, when he mentioned him, it was always in a good light, how he was a great worker, how he thought of innovative solutions to problems. I could tell Dad greatly admired Tom, but only after I became an adult did I learn of another facet of Tom Workman's life. You see, Tom was an American hero. In his 2016 book, Ghost Warriors, Lieutenant Bob Stein recounts his service in a long-range patrol airborne company formed in late 1967 in Vietnam. Small patrol teams of 5 or 6 soldiers were inserted, usually by helicopter, sometimes boat or parachute, into unknown jungle areas to gather information about the enemy. No forces in Vietnam had more close-up contact with the enemy than these soldiers. Many never made it home. Those that did returned as Rangers. Tom Workman is featured prominently in the book Ghost Warriors. The book opens with Staff Sergeant Workman leading Team 4-3 on a mission well behind enemy lines. His team finds a locked bamboo hut full of ammunition, rocket-propelled grenades, and other military supplies. And ever the problem solver, Sergeant Workman instructed his men to pour their highly flammable mosquito repellent on the stash, which they lit, and then headed to the landing zone to be picked up. Under heavy enemy fire, one of the 4-3 team took a shot in the chest. And after struggling to get the wounded soldier onto the helicopter, they all departed. That wounded soldier died on the way to the hospital. Workman later theorized that it was friendly fire from a U.S. gun shop that killed his comrade. All of this happened in one day in the life of a Vietnam Ranger. So how was Workman chosen for this elite duty? The founder and commander of the E Company Long Range Patrol personally interviewed and selected every man. And from the book, one of the first men Major Malone interviewed was Staff Sergeant Tom Workman, who reported to the Major's tent in Phan Rang, the headquarters of the 1st Brigade, 101st Airborne Division. And after pleasantries were exchanged, the Major asked Sergeant Workman, "Can you run to the top of that mountain and back?" "Yes, sir, I can," replied Sergeant Workman. "Can you run to the top of that mountain carrying a weapon, ammo, and load-bearing equipment?" "Yes, sir, I can," replied Sergeant Workman. Then the Major asked, "If I put a 50-pound sandbag in your rucksack, can you do it?" Sergeant Workman paused for a moment and said, "Sir, I cannot promise you that, but I can promise you that if anyone else can do it, I can do it." Major Malone grinned and said, "I like your attitude, son, you're in." And that's how he became a Ranger. Tom Workman's intelligent gathering efforts in Vietnam undoubtedly saved many of our soldiers' lives, but he did not survive the war unscathed. Tom suffered from post-traumatic stress syndrome. His wife, Ann, recounts his terrible nightmares of him waking up in terror, drenched in sweat, reliving some unspoken event from back in Vietnam. Once, when talking with neighbors, he hit the ground after a nearby car backfired. Later in life, Tom suffered from disease in his immune system, resulting in his body rejecting a shoulder replacement several times. It was surmised his disease was the result of some of the biological agents he came into contact with during the extended period of herbicidal warfare in Vietnam. Mr. Workman lost his appetite and he wasted away. When he died in December of 2021, he weighed less than 90 pounds. Thank you, Tom Workman, for your admirable service. I recall going with my father to a neighborhood store near the conclusion of the Vietnam War, and the proprietor introduced me to a local man who had just returned home from a tour there. Being young and not realizing the impropriety of the question, I asked the man, "Were you scared when you were in Vietnam?" The man paused for a moment and he said, "You better hope you never have to go to war, kid." And then he exited the store. I always remember those words. Those of us that have never served cannot begin to know the reality of being on a battlefield, of our adrenaline running amok, of seeing death and destruction at arm's length. So today we honor those that answered the call and those that made the ultimate sacrifice. Honoring fallen servicemen and women is not a new construct. The great Athenian politician Pericles said some 2,400 years ago, when referring to soldiers that had perished in the Peloponnesian Wars, "Their noble courage is graven not just in stone, but in our hearts." These words still ring true today, and we remember, honor, and thank all those who have perished as a result of their military service, be it during wartime or afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for those wonderful words. I wish I was that eloquent in speaking, but I'm not, so I'll defer. Okay, at this time, we are going to lay the wreath in the rear as we recite the names of those veterans who are no longer with us, who are paid the ultimate price. Gordon?
Joshua Blaney, Charles E. Byram, Paul S. Cannell, Norman S. Connell, Grover B. Crowell, Troy R. Earp, Charlie Evan, Arthur A. Flo, Walter O. Flo, Jimmy L. Forbes, Edward M. Griffin, Mark Griffin, Samuel Hennigam, Grady B. Hooks, William Hooper, Julius N. Ingram, Carol F. Jordan, Freeman Jordan, Freeman Jordan, George M. Knowles Jr., Kleiss R. Orr, Joseph L. Orr, Raymond Samuel Orr, Randolph Paris, George Phillips, Harry B. Phillips, Walter H. Price, R. B. Rowell, Gerald A. Stansel, John F. Terry, finally Everett L. Williams.
Spirit,
Chaplain will please close the process with the closing prayer.
Soft and safe be the earthly bed of this our departed comrades, and glorious be their rising therefrom. Fragrant be the pretty flowers that shall flourish over their graves, and may the first buds of springtime and perennial loveliness over their resting place unfold. Upon that bright and glad morning of the world's resurrection, when the trumpets shall sound, summoning the dead to cast their glorious thought through the earth, may their souls spring into newness of life and unfold in immortal beauty in the realms of beyond the sky. Until then, fellow comrades, best be unto your ashes, and peace be ever unto your souls. Amen.
Okay, at this time, that will end our a meeting of the Memorial Day ceremonies. In a couple of minutes, we will be retiring to the back of the park here to unveil the memorial mural. And during this time, our wonderful Matthews concert band will regale us with some music as we make that event. I appreciate everyone coming today, especially in remembering our fallen brothers and sisters who are no longer with us. This is a very important day in keeping their honor and commitment to this nation alive and in the memory of its citizens. Thank you very much.